Okay, so the first dish we're going to do a rosti with some sea bass and some salsa. Rosti, a word that you've probably heard, a word that you may well have used before. Fundamentally, a rosti is a grated potato cake, and the basic way of doing it is that you get a raw potato, you peel it, you grate it, you fry it. Lovely, sounds great. However, the problem with that is what we all tend to do is we'll fry the backside out of the potato, so it will be burnt on the outside and then the inside bit will be raw, which isn't the nicest way to eat potato really. So the key to making sure you have perfect rostis at all time is to parboil the potato. So what we've done here, we've actually cooked this fella for exactly 7 minutes. And what happens with that is it releases a little bit of the starch from the potato, which will act as our glue. So on one level, it means it will be slightly softer, which will make it more tasty, means that it's easier to cook, it means the preparation is more straightforward, but fundamentally, it will all hold together as a nice sticky mass, which is what we need. So once you've peeled it, so it will feel sticky to you. You've got your 7 minutes there, and then long strokes down the grater. And the first bit will be really easy because this outside bit, it's all kind of, it's all cooked really. Then as you get into the middle, you can hear the sound change slightly as it gets into the raw bit as well. Okay, but what's happening, the combination of the raw and of the cooked means that it's holding together, it's sticking quite beautifully. So we're just going to do one of these, and you can do it with en masse, you know, you can cook loads and loads of your spuds off, cook them at the same time. If you wanted to, from this point, glamorous assistant, thank you. At this point, you could add other things to it. You could add some chilli, you could add some herbs, whatever you want really, but we're going to keep it nice and simple, just to sort of show the principle of it. So, plenty of salt, plenty of pepper. That great thing for bringing out flavour. Salt, best thing in the world. Any of you cook without salt? Brilliant, that's good. That's completely what I want to hear. It's always a disturbing thing when people cook without salt, particularly in our industry, because it just doesn't work. Okay, so, nice bit of oil in the pan. We're not quite sure on temperatures on these fellas. And then all you do, if you want to be poncy, if Christian was going to do this, he'd then put this into one of those little presentation rings, so it was a perfect little mound of potato. But I'm going to have it slightly more random. I'm going to have it a little bit more like the hare from the Hare Bear Bunch from when we were younger. And so you just pat that round. You can see, because we've got this little bit of starch has released from the potato, that it's sticking together quite beautifully. And then into the pan, let it cook away. Okay, now, Christian, you can be in charge of looking after that fella. And so what we're looking for, I want that one for me fish. You can have that one. You can have that one for potato. Thank you. So what we're looking for, remember the potato is fundamentally just about cooked. So we don't need to worry too much about cooking it through. And again, that's another reason why this works so well. What we're looking for is to get it nice and crispy. And so you've got some good flavour in there as well. And obviously, this will stick now, won't it? It's fine, but that's okay, because we'll get some nice colour on there as well. Now, with it, we're going to cook a little bit of sea bass. Now, when we cook fish, what we all tend to do, we have a massive fear of fish, and we have it in the industry, and we have it as individuals, that we think that fish will kill us, okay? We think that if you don't take fish from a fridge and put it straight in a pan, that we're going to die. Would that be about right? When you're cooking fish at home, you go straight from the fridge into the pan. Is that what you do? No, what do you do? Perfect. It's always someone that spoils it. Yes, so the best way to get the result out of your fish, if you don't do it, is let it come to room temperature like this is. Keep it nice and dry. And the thing with it is, if you equate it to yourself, if it's a very, very cold day, then if you go in from work and you get into a boiling hot bath, then basically you do that. What we tend to do is we'll come in, we'll put the news on, we'll pick up our emails, we'll update our Facebook status, we'll have a gin and tonic, run a bath, slide into the bath, you're nice and relaxed. So the same is true of our piece of fish. What we want to do is get it to the point where it's kind of warm, and particularly something like this piece of sea bass. When it goes into the pan, what we're looking for is for the fish to actually sit as flat as it can onto the pan. So we're getting a good contact with it so it cooks evenly. That's what we're looking for. The second thing that we need to do with a piece of fish is what we tend to do as well is, with the potato, we oiled the pan, then we put the potato in, that's fine. With the fish, I just want the flavour and the smell of the fish. So we're going to oil the fish rather than oiling the pan. It's the same as true of meat as well. We'll do it when we do the lamb dish second. Now, this is our beautiful bit of sea bass. probably just about the most popular fish that we sell in Britain at the moment. And it was always regarded as a sort of poor relation 20 years ago. And then, of course, when we overfish the seas, then you look for something else that you can eat, and we ate sea bass, we overfish that. Now, of course, it's quite heavily farmed, which of course means it's a good sustainable fish, but from a commercial point of view, it also means that it's continually well priced. So you can always get sea bass on the menu, and it's always a great thing that customers will always think that they're getting a special treatment. In fact, after salmon, it's probably the cheapest fish on the market consistently these days. Now, we can cook this piece of fish exactly as it is. At the moment, this piece of fish represents me. Okay? It's a mid-40s kind of fish. It's relatively attractive. It's maybe a little bit raggedy around the edges. But here, we've got a little bit of belly fat that we'd quite like not to have anymore. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn this piece of ancient middle-aged fish into something that was young and beautiful as I once was, with a full head of hair, energy, boundless energy, enthusiasm, no cynicism whatsoever. So we trim top and bottom, and then this belly fat we just take straight down like that, and that goes in for making our fish cakes, in for making our fish stew, into making our fish soup. And this now is me as a mid-20s-year-old gentleman. I'm lean, I'm mean, I'm looking pretty toned, and I'm pretty damn tasty. You're just getting that idea, aren't you? I can see. You're just imagining now, aren't you, what I was like when I was 20. Yeah, flicking back my hair. So, then what we do, now as I said to you, what we're going to do, we're going to oil the fish rather than oil the meat, so we get kind of direct contact with it. So, a bit of oil onto our lovely bit of bass, rub that into the surface. Now, the problem that we'll have is that, because we're not quite sure on temps, this may well stick. If it does, it's the fault of the machinery. If it doesn't stick, then it really shows what a fantastic chef I am. So a bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And I'm a big fan of white pepper rather than black pepper on fish. No reason for it other than just pure taste. I think that slightly more acidic flavour tends to bring out the flavour of fish quite well. And so then, if we're right, what we were saying, when this fish goes into the pan, there we go, it'll sit up slightly, but fundamentally sitting on the surface. So it means that straight off, what we're getting is the fish cooking rather than the oil cooking. Yeah, we're kind of getting there hot. Okay, your rosti done, Christian?
Oh, absolutely.
Are you happy with your rosti, Christian? Christian's happy with his rosti, so I'm happy as well. Now, flavour-wise, what we've got at the moment. We've got our lovely bit of potato, which is lovely, nice and neutral. That'll give us our carbohydrates. Fish and potatoes, that classic combination. I'm sure we think of many dishes that work in that way. With it, we now want to kind of get something else to bring all of those flavours together. The fish has kind of a nice, slightly sweet flavour with the sea bass. So what I want now, I want a little bit of acidity. Now, I'm sure, as Noel will tell you when we talk about wine later on, the way that we work as human beings in terms of flavour is that our taste buds work on either complementary or contrasting flavours. So if we're doing a complementary flavour, something we could do with this would be to have something that complements the flavour of the potato and the fish. So something like mushy peas works, so they're all kind of quite neutral flavours. The other way of making our taste buds work is to have something that contrasts with it, i.e. something that's going to be acidic. So we're going to do something acidic, and we're going to make a very simple cherry tomato salsa. So would you like some work to do, Christian? Fine. Would you like to finely dice this little half of red onion for me? So all we've got on that, we're going to have a little bit of red onion. We've got some cherry tomatoes that we've already chopped up. I mean, you could use ordinary tomatoes, something nice from a visual point of view. The cherry toms work really well. Now, just back to our sea bass for a second. He's cooked for 2 to 3 minutes on that side. Yeah, it is a little low. Is it hitting your back, Chris? And then we flip it over, and you may just be able to smell it. You can just smell the bass. You're not smelling any oil at all. What we're smelling is the delicious flavour of fish, and that's what we want. And then equally, from a customer point of view, what you want is when your dishes go out into the restaurant, into the pub, you want them to smell of the ingredients that you want it to be. You don't want it to smell of oil, of dirty oil, and somewhere along the line you get the flavour of fish. So by not oiling the pan, what we're getting is the fantastic combination of fish, and that's all that we're looking for. So we've got red onion, we've got our cherry tomatoes, and a little bit of chilli. Chilies, as you know, the thing that actually makes the chilies hot, it's the membrane around the seeds that gives it its heat. So if you want to control the amount of heat, then just take the seeds out and just use the flesh. But there's something quite nice about that whole nature of things actually being sort of slightly on the edge of being not quite sure how we control it. Now, the problem with avocados, of course, is if you're very, very lucky, you have an avocado that when you do that, you'll be able to take the flesh off it. Very rare we get them like that. What you tend to do is find, like this fella, that is hard, that is kind of, it's not an easy thing to do. If you find you've got a very, very ripe avocado, then this is quite nice just to actually break it down, almost use it like a guacamole, so you're kind of squashing the thing down. It's about the flavour, really. And again, from a flavour point of view, this now gives us that sort of slightly soapy flavour that you get from avocado. And just slice it down, chop it that way. That all goes into our lovely salsa as well. So we've got avocado, we've got cherry tomato, we've got a red onion, we've got chilli, a little bit of coriander. Coriander. This is going to be uncooked, so we can use all the coriander. If you cook with coriander, if you're making curries or if you're using it for a flavouring in a hot dish, use only the stem rather than the leaves. The leaves break down really quickly. All of the flavour, all of that lovely aromatic perfume that we expect from coriander comes from the stem rather than from anything else. Okay, so that's our basics. Then we have plenty of salt into there, bring out the flavour of the tomatoes. Plenty of white pepper in there, which will bring together all the chili flavours in there. And then we're going to add a little bit of lemon, a little bit of lime rather. We'll have some zest, and we will have some juice. And again, the zest will give us a little bit of acidity in there and a little bit of perfume. And then, of course, we'll get that full acidity from the lime itself. So that all goes in. Nice squeeze of that. Then we add a little dribble of extra virgin olive oil, not a lot. And then we will add a splash of our beer. Just a little bit of our Veltins goes in there. Now, if you want, you could intensify this flavour by putting the beer into a pan and boiling it down so it becomes more of a syrup. But because this is very fresh, I want this to be a really lovely fresh dish, then I don't want to do that. I want to keep it as kind of as pure and as raw as it can. What we want from a flavour point of view, we want this to almost kind of sting a little bit, you know, so we want that bit of acidity. But still, to bring it down slightly, and again, to bring all of these flavours together, got sweetness from the tomato, just that little pinch of sugar, just a little tiny bit goes in there. What we're going to do to finish off the bass, we've got nice flavour in there at the moment. To enrich that flavour, we're going to baste it with just a touch of butter. So that goes into the pan, and as it begins to melt, and again, we've got the heat on sort of a medium-low heat here, and as it begins to melt, we're just going to baste over the top of the bass. Okay, so our component parts are all done. What do we do to serve this fella? The rosti sits right in the middle, like that. And then our bass, skin side up, will sit on the top there. And then simply get some of this lovely, delicious cherry tomato salsa and spoon that on. And all of the flavour of the Veltins beer works in there. If you wanted to make this a heavier flavour, now the bass I think needs a light beer to go with it, but if you were doing, say, something that would take a lot more flavour, say something like a big piece of turbot, then I would then go for something heavier, maybe go for something like the unicorn, or even go as far as using something like ginger tom, which would work really nicely with it. So there we go. So there's our first dish, which is our sea bass with our rosti and salsa. Thank you very much. Feel free to clap. Yeah. Okay.